We are getting started here at our normal upload times, which is every 1 p.m. Central Time on Sundays. So I'm going to get the chat set up. We'll get into the announcements and then we'll get started here. So every time I start my stream, I got to change a few things because it's designed that way by the channel. There we go. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we're going to be working on some stuff on the back of Malibu steel. And what we're trying to do is get something that'll last, change a little bit of the airflow to hopefully get some better fuel mileage. We're also going to replace one of the most annoying things when it comes to trunks and hoods is those annoying shocks that you have to deal with. So that's what we'll have going. Guys, let's get into the announcements. Thank you all for your support. It's really been helping to build and grow the channel. It means a lot to me. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. That way you guys will have access to my live uploads whenever I go live. Make sure you ring the notification bell so you get notified. All right, so what are we doing to Malibu steel? Well, Malibu steel had some bad paint. We had to do some touch-ups and buff this paint before putting this spoiler on. I also needed to clean off all that debris from buffing. First, I want to go through what I did with the buffing process to get you guys up to speed on where we're at currently with this project. Lastly, we're going to be putting the spoiler on, and we're going to also be changing out these hood shocks. Now, these hood shocks, these are okay. They still kind of work, but they're not working properly. And I have a potential longer trip coming up with the car, so I need to make sure that everything is set and working properly. Again, as always, guys, if you got any questions, chat them in down below, and you guys, and I'll read them on screen for you guys. If you have any questions about your projects, I'll try to give you advice and help you get through whatever complications you're running into. Sometimes we can easily answer them. Sometimes we need to go back and look up information to get you guys accurate information. Torque specs are not something I'll have readily on hand unless it's something I've dealt with in the past, but we do try to help you guys out. Again, mods, if you guys are in here, make sure you chat in down below that you're in here. That way I know you're here. I'm going to check my internet connection quick. So I am working on a new setup. There we go. So I am working on a new setup, guys. So hopefully this will work out good. So we got our first chat of the day. Hillbilly JDM16. Okay. Yep, guys, as always, we're working on a few new things. We're working to kind of build the channel up and grow things. Today, it's on spoilers and hood shocks. That way we can get this trunk working properly. Divine full, I don't know. I guess that's to be debated depending on who you are. Trisha Flake, hello. Hi. Good to have you guys here. That one is in a foreign language. Thank you. Yeah, I cannot read that. I'm pretty sure that's Russian or Ukraine, so I'm not able to read that one. Hello. Yep. Hello. Good to have you in here. So we'll start off with some of the basics of what we've got going so far. So the first thing we did is we had to buff the paint. Now this had very rough paint because somebody oversprayed it. Overspray happens anytime you do a painting project and you don't mask off or protect the painted surface that you don't want to get paint on. This entire car has overspray on it. The entire car. There's no way I can really alleviate that other than buffing the paint out. Again, if I get too aggressive with buffing, I can buff through the clear coat and burn the paint. I do not want that. So what I have to do is a process. I do my buffing in a two-step process. The first step I do is I buff with an aggressive compound. Then I clean off all of that aggressive compound and I start with a machine glaze. The machine glaze will pull up the shine so that it's there, and it will help eliminate any small minor scratches in clear coat. Now, this isn't a full detail process. If I was to go and ceramic coat this car, I would need to get a lot more aggressive with my processes. I would need to actually break it down to a middle compound. I would have to slowly work the paint back up, and I would have to do that after I've wet sanded out the vehicle to make sure that the paint is as smooth as possible. On this old of a car with this much paint damage, I'm not getting too carried away with it. So I'm only going to do a 2-step buffing process, and that'll pull a lot of shine up on the car and make it look a lot better. Plus, I did do some touch-ups, so it'll help flatten out those spots that are up too high from the touch-up paint. So here's what we've got going. I want to show you guys the compounds, and then we'll talk about them. So the first one is a very aggressive compound. This is meant to cut. So this is this is what they call a Super Duty cutting compound. It's designed to cut through and get right down to the base clear coat right from factory. You can cut through the factory clear coat with this stuff. So just know that getting really aggressive with this stuff and really grinding on the paint, you could potentially buff through even the paint layer if you got really, really aggressive. I don't sit on the vehicle very long with this stuff. I use a special pad, and I'll show you guys that in just a second. But after I get done with this, I clean off the paint, make sure that this is no longer on there. Then I hit it with this. This is a machine compound. So the machine will pull the shine up. It'll get out all those little minor scratches, clean everything up real nice. Works awesome to do it in this 2-step process, especially if you're not going to ceramic coat the car or do anything crazy. Again, like I said, if you're doing that, you're going through a lot more steps, including a wet sanding process that's about 3 or 4 steps if you do it properly. 2 pads I use. This is my compound pad. And just so I don't mix it up, I even put a C on it, just so that I know that I got the right pad. And then this is basically my polishing pad. So this is designed to polish. Now, I use the DeWalt drill. It's worked really good for me over many, many years, many, many different projects. It's strong. It's designed to do what I'm doing. Plus, it comes with a variable speed setting. This is what you need for buffing. You need the variable speed so that you can adjust how fast you want to go. Again, the faster this spins, the faster it cuts. So if you notice you're cutting too quick, you can slow the speed down and actually get the cut that you want without cutting through the clear coat. Again, I run mine at about 1800 RPMs. If I notice that it's getting a little too aggressive, I back it down to about 14. So there's some buffing tips for you guys. Hopefully that'll help you. Got a few chats. Yep. Okay. So yeah, that's the process of buffing in a nutshell. Just knowing what to do when you're buffing those out and kind of how to work the paint back to where you want it, especially when it's contaminated paint. I mean, when it's contaminated, there really isn't much you can do with it other than to try to strip off the contamination. Sometimes chemicals will work. So sometimes a lacquer thinner will help break down that extra layer up on top. Lacquer thinner can also damage clear coat though, so I use a general purpose adhesive remover. You guys have seen me use that a lot on the channel. We're going to use it here a little bit on the project once we go to put the spoiler on, but that general purpose adhesive remover isn't as aggressive, but it also doesn't cut through excess paint. So it'll work great for removing wax, grease, any other contaminants. And because I've already buffed this car, I have to put something on here in order to make sure that the spoiler is going to stay attached. We do not want that spoiler coming loose because we didn't put the proper stuff on it. Again, alcohol wipes are a good way to go as well. So if you have alcohol wipes, you can pre-wipe the surface. Since our spoiler is attached by double-sided tape, we do need to make sure there's nothing on this paint but paint. So no wax, no grease, no even ceramic coat. We would want to try to get down below that ceramic coat and attach it directly to the paint. That way it can't peel back up later on. I'm going to show you guys a little bit with the spoiler here in just a bit. We're going to go ahead and we're going to prep this. I'll show you guys kind of the process that I use, and it's pretty basic. So I'll get you guys here at an angle. That way you guys can see the whole spot that we'll be prepping for this. So I've really worked the last week or so to kind of upgrade my signal quality here in the garage. That way you guys get better videos as I'm going. I know we've been battling it the last couple of weeks to get good signal here in the garage, so. All right, I'm just checking chats. Again, mods, if you guys are here, make sure you let me know that you're here. That way I know that I got my mods in-house. If you want to become a mod, just show that you're able to provide knowledge to other people. Make sure that you know your automotive stuff. And I will gladly give you guys a wrench. So, blue shop towel, again, general purpose adhesive remover. And there's the part number. I use this stuff a lot. And it works great for prepping any painted surface. Even if I'm going to do some painting and I want to make sure there's no wax or grease on it, I use this stuff because it works great for cleaning. Right now I'm going to wipe everything that I buffed so I don't have any issues with adhesion or any spots that are not clean. Again, where the spoiler is going to go, I want to make sure it's absolutely perfectly clean. So this stuff does dry quickly. I could leave it that way, but I choose not to. Because it will haze up, and the hazing is actually a little bit of a chemical residue. So I usually try to come back over, wipe it dry. Now remember, rubbing on paint is what scratches it. So the more you rub on this paint after you've buffed it, the more you'll scratch it. So you see me touching it here. I'm touching it in a spot that isn't going to have the adhesive. If I touch here, I need to re-wipe because the oils on my hand can affect that adhesive. All right, just checking chats. So here is our spoiler. Now, I decided to go with chrome because there's a lot of chrome on this car. It's something it's hard to erase the chrome that is actually on this thing. So to do a chrome delete would require me to spend a lot of money replacing door handles, window trim. So I kind of rolled with it. I just went in, I leaned into the chrome. And some people will do that, some people will not. I chose to lean into it. Some people may choose to delete it. I've done it on both. I've done chrome deletes and I've actually added chrome. So it all depends on the vehicle and what I think the vehicle fits. So for this, I'm going to put my fingers on the tips because that'll help me guide where I want this spoiler. And I'm aiming for a specific spot when I place this spoiler. So when it sticks down, I'm going to want it right there. That's where I'm going to want this thing to stay and where I want it to pretty much live for the remainder of its time on this car. Let me talk about something I had to do on the back side of this spoiler quick. And this is because when I bought this, I wasn't sure if the double-sided tape that they had was actually going to adhere to the car because it was below the chrome edge here. You can see this non-chrome panel in here. This is what was attached to the adhesive. Well, that double-sided tape that they applied was partially on the chrome lip, partially on this recessed white. The recessed white was actually causing it to where if I would have just stuck it on the car, it would not have adhered very well. So I've actually put 3 layers of double-sided tape on the back side of the spoiler and 2 layers of double-sided tape on the front side of the spoiler. And that's just to get it up above this edge. So when I look at it from the side, I want to be able to see the double-sided tape sticking up above the chrome. If it's not sticking up above the chrome, then it won't adhere to the car. So that is one trick you guys are going to want to check if you're going to put these kind of spoilers on. Make sure that the foam actually sits above this edge. Otherwise, it will not adhere to the car. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and peel this, and we're going to go ahead and stick this. Now, there's another way to actually do this process. I'll explain that in just a bit. Check chats while I'm peeling this double-sided tape for you guys. All right. All right, so we've got all of this peeled now. Again, if you guys got anything or if you guys need help with your projects, make sure you chat in down below. I'll read it on screen and see if we can help you guys with your project. So first, I'm going to line up where I want the spoiler to rest. And I'm going to use that by putting my fingers on the edge of where I want it to go. I'm trying to line it up good with the body molding so that it adheres to basically a spot on the body panel. Okay, so before I press this down, I'm going to show you guys how I line this up. Okay. All right, so how I line this up. So using my finger as a guide, I guided my finger here to mark this spot right here and mark this spot right here. And as you can see, I got really close to both sides being perfectly even. Now, the only other thing I could have done to make sure that I was perfectly straight is I could have measured this entire spoiler, ran a piece of tape in the middle, marked that tape, and then measured the hood or the trunk and found the middle and marked that. That's how we also do like hood decals and stuff like that when we need to find the middle of the vehicle. Sometimes we can line it up with badging. Sometimes badging is perfectly in the middle. Other times we'll measure the panel left to right, find our perfect center, and we'll mark it on a piece of tape. Then whatever we're doing, we can measure that piece and then do the same. That's a little trick to help you to get it perfectly centered if you have troubles with that. Otherwise, if you know that you can measure it with just your fingers, you could just measure it with your fingers. So now I'm going to come back in and I'm going to go ahead and push this spoiler down. And my goal is to get this to adhere perfectly onto the car. So for this, I had a couple of choices. I could have went with a factory painted to match spoiler. I could have went with the chrome one that you guys see here, or I could have went with a flat black. And that was kind of my other option, is I was leaning towards possibly the flat black, but I was like, you know, there's just not enough chrome accent on the car to keep the chrome on if I don't add a little bit to it. And I really do think this kind of ties the chrome into the rest of the car. So I really do like the overall look that was done here. This is a really smooth design. It's a very low profile spoiler. So let's cover quickly why we would go with a low profile over a higher profile spoiler. So when you have a big wing on the car, it creates a tremendous amount of downforce on the back of this car. What can happen is it causes a lift situation on the front of the car, meaning even at highway speed, 55, 60, you're going to be hooking more air under the front of the car. That's going to cause you to lose fuel mileage. A small spoiler like this actually helps over not having any at all. And why does this help versus hurt? Well, when you don't have this, what happens is the wind comes off the back of the car and will wrap around the back of the car, and it actually hooks the back part of the bumper and actually puts drag on the back of the car. When you have this small little spoiler, it flips the air up, so by the time it spirals around, your car is already past where the air is hooking around, meaning that it's not hooking on the back of the vehicle and pulling it backwards. If you see wind tunnel tests, this is the things they test for, is because it really does make a huge difference. And it can really affect your fuel mileage long term, which is why we decided to do something about this now and kind of add this little accent piece. Next, we're going to dive into our strut replacements for our truck. I got some from Tony here. Mini spoiler, yes, that's exactly what this is. It's just a mini spoiler, and again, it's designed to flip air away from the back bumper when you're going at highway speed, because it will cause a drag on the back of the car. What we're going to go for are these struts right here. Now, the ones that are on here are factory struts, and it's time we just change these out. They're really not in very good shape. They do kind of work, but it's time to upgrade and get some good quality on there. Tony, cool. Yeah, it's the mini spoiler is a nice way to go. It does add a little bit of accent, and it's not too over the top. Again, like I said, the big wings are only really good in drag racing setups or where you need to have a tremendous amount of downforce. So these have a little metal clip that you have to wiggle. I usually get behind it with a flat screwdriver, and if the screwdriver's too big, I just go with a smaller one. But I get behind this metal clip and then wiggle it as I pull the rod out. So just as you guys saw there, we'll do it again up here. I get behind the little metal tab. I'll show you guys that once I get these off. And then pull it out as I remove the strut. So here is what we're looking at. Right here, we take and lift this metal tab up, and then we can pull the strut off of the panel. This works really good to remove these. Now, I'm not going to toss these because a friend of mine has a Malibu, and his are completely shot where it won't hold the trunk up. For me, I'm replacing them because mine will hold the trunk up, but I have to really kind of help it up, and I'm trying to avoid that. So here's our new strut. Comes right in the bag. Oftentimes this won't be attached, so sometimes we'll have to screw that back onto the tab, and it does come off with threads. So sometimes they will be in the package with the threads off. I just make sure I spin this down tight before I go too far. SoCal, good to see ya. Just replaced the hood struts on my truck this morning. Yeah. I thought this would be a good one because, like I said, I do have I do have a road trip coming up, and I'm trying to make sure that I have everything I need the way I want it. So what I do is I make sure that I line it up, make sure that everything's aimed right before I snap anything on. If it isn't, I give it a slight twist. Try not to over tighten these. These are only plastic and you will strip them out. So now that I got that where I want it, I just click the top one in, click the bottom one in. There we go. So now this one's on here, and just one of these struts makes a difference. I had to help this trunk all the way up before. It goes by itself just by replacing the one strut. So I do have the other one, but guys, you do know I record on other areas, so I'm going to save that for them. But that's the simple of removal. All you do is get behind this metal tab with a flat screwdriver, and you can slowly wiggle it out. Both top and bottom, comes right out, no problem. So I'll close it for now. So SoCal, I want to bring you up to speed. That's the spoiler we got on here today. So we finally got this one on here. I think you were here when I did the rubber one. And yeah, that rubber one was just garbage. So yeah, glad I finally got a decent spoiler for this car. But yeah, like I said, I usually don't throw stuff away. So if I got a part that's still okay, oftentimes I've got friends that have similar cars. So I'll tell them, hey, I got this. It does still kind of work, but it's starting to get weak. If you want to replace it, especially something this simple, anyone can change these out. They're not a big deal. So when they do completely fail, it's not a big deal. Now I'm going to change my hood one anyway, just because. Well, I bought them as a kit, so I'm going to replace them as a kit. And when I do, my hood one actually still somewhat works. And it actually works pretty decent. But I'm putting a new one on it just so that I don't have to fight it. When I change that out, I'm going to give all three of these shocks to a friend of mine who has the same car. The rubber ones tend to have too much flex and don't end up working like they should. Yeah, as you saw in the video when I put that rubber one on, what happened was it actually wouldn't flex to the body. So I had it coming around the side here, kind of like what GM vehicles used to do back in the day. Well, it started peeling up here. So from here to here, it started peeling right in this area. And I couldn't keep it fixed to the vehicle because it was rubber, and that rubber was stiff enough that it was causing the adhesive to peel up. So I tried to look for something that was more of a factory style spoiler, and then I came across this one. These, like I said, they come in different colors. You can get chrome, you can get flat black, you can get painted to match. I chose not to go with the painted to match because this car already has a bunch of chrome on it. And I really wanted to accent some of that chrome by doing this. If I was to do the vent shades, I would probably do chrome vent shades on this car because it's already got the chrome window trim. Why would I go through all the work of deleting all the chrome, then to buy the flat black or the color match? That's a lot more work, and especially for an older car. Unless it was something you were designing on purpose to look a certain way, then I wouldn't go that route. That's some of the reason why the silver Swine got chrome on it rather than the flat black plastic that was on it. The reason I did that is because I needed to change out my grill. My grill was all scratched up, dinged up, really looked bad. Didn't really fit the theme of what was going on. Put a chrome grill on it, went with a chrome bumper, and the reason for that was it's easier to clean. I live in a state that has bugs, and when you drive at night, it gets even worse. So I wanted chrome because chrome is so much easier to clean bugs off of, and it's not, you don't have the scratched paint look by trying to clean them off all the time. Now, some car washes are good about getting bugs off, but other ones are not, and honestly, to run around trying to find a decent car wash is kind of hard where I live. So it's not too easy to go to a car wash that'll work to get the bugs off of. That also, I don't know, it gets into an area where it gets kind of touchy. So check my chat, see what you guys got coming in. Okay. Gail Lamar, hi. Hi, good to have you here. So again, if you guys got any questions with your projects, chat them in. Both me or my mods will definitely help you guys with your projects, get you guys information such as torque specs, even kind of other things to watch out for when you're doing certain repairs. But yeah, that's really what we do, is we try to help you guys with your projects. And we're slowly growing and building the channel. So thank you guys for all the support. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe button, ring the notification bell. We do this every Sunday at 1 p.m. At one point there was talk about maybe switching it up and maybe not doing Sundays, but for me, I think I'm gonna have to stick to Sundays. It just works better for me right now. So we will be staying at this time slot. Gail Lamar, should I get a 95 Chevy dually as my first? Here's the thing. You're looking at probably a 1-ton if you're talking dually. You're going to use a lot of fuel. They're just heavier trucks. They're built heavier. If it's a diesel, you might be all right. You might get a little bit, but honestly, that's a big truck for a first vehicle. Honestly, a car would be a better fit depending on your commute, depending on how far you're going to drive. If you're driving it a lot, definitely you want to save fuel mileage. Trucks are meant for people who are going to be towing and hauling. If you got trailers and things like that you're going to tow and haul, or horses, that's ideal. First one in Facebook Marketplace for $1,500, and I have yeah, you could get a car for that, honestly, and you'd save yourself the fuel mileage. That's going to be really, really bad on fuel mileage. Those dualies are not good on fuel mileage. Again, that's designed for somebody who's going to pull a trailer. I would not waste my time, honestly, with that kind of setup. Now, if I knew I was going to pull a trailer, absolutely I would go the dually route, because I know that I could haul a lot of weight with it. If I was pulling a big horse trailer or race car trailer, you definitely want the dually. SoCal, it's going to be bad on gas for your first vehicle. Yep. Some things are easier to manage in tighter areas, parking narrow. Yeah, that's the other aspect, is a dually doesn't have a very good turning radius. So you're not going to be able to maneuver that into parking spots very well. You're going to find yourself parking in the back of parking lots a lot just because of the size of the vehicle. Dualies have those wider fenders that hang out, so you have to make sure you don't clip car corrals or other cars sitting next to you. So there is a lot bigger challenges with bigger trucks like that. Again, I would say first vehicle, car would be probably the best bet. Now, my first vehicle was a Dodge pickup, 2-wheel drive, long box, regular cab, 2-wheel drive. That was my first one. After that, I went to the S10, and I had a Chevy regular cab S10 with the 6-foot box. That was my second. And I had many, 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 many more after that, including dualies, including diesels, including gassers. Just the reason we got what we got here on the channel, this one came to me through a family member who passed away. I've done most of the projects on that vehicle on this channel. So I've done a lot of different stuff. We do have some stuff coming up for dash stuff on that truck. The reason I got the Malibu is I needed fuel mileage. And honestly, those Malibus are going for pretty decent depending on age and stuff like that. What do we got? SoCal again. So it being a 95, you're going to be looking at more maintenance than you want for your first year car. That's the other aspect. I would say that needs to be probably your main concern. Is older the vehicle, the more maintenance you're going to need to do to it. Oftentimes people don't do maintenance like they should. They don't keep up on their maintenance records. They don't change the shocks and struts like they're supposed to. They don't do wheel bearings until they're making noise. Brakes are always ignored. People don't change brakes until they start grinding and making a bunch of noise. So that I would tend to kind of lean away from the super old stuff. If you got the mechanical experience or you know somebody who can help you work on those kind of things, then you can go ahead and take that hit. You can take the risk and buy those older vehicles, but know that you're going to be doing maintenance. Plugs and wires, caps and rotors, coils, you're going to be changing that stuff. That's not something you can get away from. And the older the vehicle, the more maintenance it's going to need, because oftentimes it was probably neglected or even parked for long periods of time. Gail, 95 GMC Yukon. Yukons, again, you're not really saving much for fuel mileage. Is it four-wheel drive? That's going to be your other aspect. And do you live in a climate that you need four-wheel drive? So maybe we need to ask those questions right now. Do you live in a winter climate where you have to get through snow and ice? If you do, then four-wheel drive is going to be an option, and it's going to probably be something you're going to want to lean on. Again, maybe the all-wheel drive stuff might be a little bit better for you for a first car, something a little smaller or tighter. But again, it does come down to price, and I get that. Yep, again, Yukon is a big vehicle for your first car. 2015 Silverado. You're going to be spending a lot more money. Yeah, you're not going to have that'll rob the bank for sure. So the 2015 Silverado can be a nice truck. You're out of the range of some of the issues. You're still going to have issues with the active fuel management on that truck. As far as what I would suggest, if you're looking for something a little bit smaller, the Colorado would be a lot smaller truck. It would work a little bit better, and it would have mobility in areas like in a parking garage or when you're at a mall area. My dad has one. Yep. So that would be, 2015. If you're used to driving that 2015, then you're used to the half tons already. You're used to kind of parking them. The only thing I was going to lean away from was that dually, though, because a lot of the dualies have those fenders that stick out, and it's easy to hook stuff. He has like 29 cars. Well, I can tell you on this channel, we've got 4 of them. So you guys have already seen 2 of them. The other 2 that are not here is an 01 GMC Jimmy. That's four-wheel drive. That's my winter vehicle. And then we've got the Kia Soul. So that's a 2020 Kia Soul. And honestly, the best fuel mileage out of all of them is the Kia Soul, but the Kia Soul is starting to use oil. SoCal, I would recommend looking for something like a truck or SUV. Don't go bigger than a Ranger Tacoma size or a 4Runner size for SUVs. Yeah, for a first vehicle, those are good sized vehicles to kind of get in, maneuver around. I like all those answers. If you were a Ford fan, I would say, yeah, the Ranger would be a way to go. Again, if you like the foreign and you go with Toyota, you could go with the Tacoma. As far as GM stuff, if your family's a GM, Colorado is about the same size as a Tacoma, and they really do work well for what you would be looking for. I live in a very bad winter climate, and I have experience on driving cars like trucks, like big ones. Okay, so if you do live in the winter climates, I would start leaning towards either like a mid-size SUV, a Trailblazer, Colorado, something like that with four-wheel drive. That would really kind of help get you where you need to be. Not like semi though. Yeah, semis. Yeah, those are really big. I do drive those for a living. I know size-wise they are a pain. We can't go in some spots. It just is what it is. So guys, let me know, like, compared to my old videos, how this video is doing as far as quality of video, because I did change a bunch of stuff internet-wise here in my garage. So if that's coming through really good, you guys aren't getting any grainy videos or anything like that, then we definitely have a good setup going for the future. At some point, I might have to bury a cable, and it is a pretty big cable that I installed. I will be doing like a video update, and SoCal video quality is much better. Good. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a video here in a couple of weeks about upgrades that we're doing with the garage. I'm going to run down exactly what I did to fix this. And unfortunately, it's not a permanent fix, but it will work for now until I can get a cable buried from my house to my garage. But yeah, it made a big difference. I'm really happy with what's going on quality-wise, so hopefully this will help with the content, and we can definitely help you guys out more, and it won't be so distracting having grainy video. We've been dealing with that. Ask SoCal. We've been dealing with that for like the last month or two, and it's not been good. I've been frustrated about it. I can't make decent clips off of the videos that I make, so it's been really frustrating. So I'm gonna grab something to drink, and then I'm gonna go ahead and make a clip for you guys. And this one you guys will see later on this week. I'm going to do a clip on how to remove these and then reinstall these quick. So I will be doing that. In the meantime, while I'm making this clip, if you guys want to get your chats in, get them in now, and we'll do those after the clip. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and set up for clip, guys. All right, so as long as the clip works, here's what we got. When you're removing these struts, it's pretty simple to remove them. A flat screwdriver is all you need. You get behind the metal tab that's right here. And once you get behind that metal tab, you can lift that tab up. Like so. Once you've lifted that tab, you can pop this out of the socket. You'll do that on the top and on the bottom, and then all you do to reinstall this is press it back in. So removing your shocks that you have on not only your trunk but your hood are fairly easy to do. The trick is make sure you stabilize your hood or your trunk before you remove these shocks. Now if you have two shocks, you can do one side then the other, and you won't have to prop it so much. On a hood situation, I would definitely put a stick or something in the hood to hold the hood up so it doesn't come down when you remove it. These are one of those things that are super annoying when you have to go underneath your hood when they don't work, and they're really annoying when you're trying to get stuff in and out of a trunk and the trunk keeps closing on you. A good shock, when you open it, it will automatically pop up and you won't have to do anything crazy with it. So now that we've done that clip, guys, I'm going to go into some of our chats that we got here. Side note, did the first test drive in the Falcon yesterday. Finally got the Falcon out, huh? I'm watching the Browns game. It's 10-10. Yeah, I know my show falls on football season. I was kind of kicking around changing the times and doing other stuff. To be perfectly honest, it does work better for me and my family to do it at this time. That's why we're here. And I do know that some people are going to pop in and out, and it does work the best for my home life. I don't want this to interfere with my home life. So that's why I'm doing it now, because it does work best for me. But yeah, that's the plan is that we're going to keep building here, and we're going to keep the times about the same. We're going to go with the 1 p.m. Central Time slot. It does really work well. SoCal, still got more to do. It's going to be a monster one when it's complete. I hate voice chattering. Gail, tell me what you mean by that. Are you getting like weird voice reverberation? I have looked at possibly putting some sound panels in here. So let me know if that's maybe a route I should go. SoCal, chime in on that too. But SoCal, get back to me. What motor do you got in that? I'm curious. If you're building a monster, I know it's not a small motor. You guys know the game made for Speed Rivals. I like that game. I got some cool cards. I got a Dodge Charger with red rims and black stripe, and red stripe and black body. Oh yeah, there's some good games out there that actually are pretty realistic. I believe she's talking about the voice to text. Oh, okay. Yeah, sometimes the voice to text. Yeah, sometimes the voice to text is kind of goofed up if you're listening via voice to text, especially if I have any stutters. I try to eliminate those as much as possible, but it happens. Mark, hi, bro. Mark, good to have you in here today. I'm using a different email. Okay. So yeah, it might be just different connections and stuff like that. But yeah, there's quite a few different programs that you can use to kind of translate things. Also, again, we've got a lot of upgrades coming for the garage, guys. There's a lot that we're going to be doing in the next few weeks. So I will do that video probably in about 2 weeks, I'm hoping. The motor is a 660 twin 88 millimeter turbos built by a local engine builder. You are building a monster. That is a serious machine. Are you looking at actually racing that, or you're just going to put it on the street for fun? You're getting close to drag territory there. I see that's why I hate voice chat. It sucks. I like saying stuff because it doesn't pick it up right away. Yeah, voice chat, I don't know. I have never gotten into that. Even some of the subtitle stuff, I just don't care to have even my subtitles on some, when I watch a video. It gets to be too distracting, and sometimes it doesn't even translate it the right way. Roadster 3-speed transmission, or Rossler 3-speed transmission. Dude, you're not building a streetcar, are you? There's no way that's a normal streetcar. I'm trying to remember if you said what chassis it was on. Let me check back. Falcon. Yeah, so you're in a Ford Falcon. It's a purpose-built car, not a daily driver. Falcon. 64 Falcon. Nice. Yeah, that's a purpose-built car. You're not. That ain't a daily. At some point, I'm hoping that we'll get a toy in here at some point, and we can start playing with some fun stuff and getting into things that might need even some tuning. Possibly getting to a tuning shop and doing some videos there. So that's a little ways out. We've got quite a bit of other content that I need to get out to you guys. Honestly, I'm probably about 3 months out yet on my content. Things that I'm coming up with now for ideas. I've got 3 months worth of stuff I got to do before I do that. I play Need for Speed Rivals. I have a Charger with red rims, red stripes, and black body. Yeah, the Need for Speed was a pretty good game that was fairly realistic as it kind of got more advanced. There was, people like to say GTA, but GTA is nowhere near that. It's not even close. It doesn't give you any of the customizing options that might even be close to being considered real life. There was one more out there that I can't remember. It wasn't Need for Speed, but it was pretty realistic. There's also a mechanic simulator that is really close to real life doing mechanical work. That was a really good game. I think they did come up with an upgrade to it. I saw I think it was the 2018 version, and then somebody just started playing the 2020 version, I think. So those were pretty good games too. I do get into doing some gaming, guys. I've been around games a long time. I know about the old school Mario, so I know that dates me. I know that puts an age to me, but I remember original Mario, original Zelda, Diablo. So I mean, yeah, I could easily make a gaming channel if I wanted to, just based on things that I did, gaming wise back in the day. I kind of fallen a little bit out of the gaming because I did need to start working on my own stuff, and that kind of got me into other things, learning other techniques and tricks and doing different stuff that really did make a difference on the direction that I decided to go. Plus, two people were pretty influential in why I got into automotive in the first place, and my whole point of this channel was to kind of give back, because they were so helpful in me growing my knowledge that I felt that this channel was about sharing that knowledge with other people. I'm playing it right now. So yeah, I mean, that's why I started this channel, guys. I started it basically so that I could help other people do projects. Some of the stuff is going to be fun, cool projects like this. Others are going to be big, giant headaches that we break bolts and we're going to have to fish out broken bolts and stuff like that. It happens, and we try not to let it happen, but sometimes we can't prevent everything, especially on suspensions and living in a rust belt. I do live in the rust belt, so when I work on things, I do break things. It happens. Wheel bearings are nasty to get out. We got special tools to break them out so that we can get them out. Sometimes we'll break the spindle trying to get a wheel bearing out, just because of the amount of rust we get here, especially if you have an aluminum spindle and a steel bearing. Those two will almost solder together over time, and that's because of the process of mixing two different metals together. We run into that a lot. Aluminum parts are not meant to be on suspension components. I know many manufacturers that have done it, and I'm not a fan of any of them when they do it, because it just makes the repair so much harder when you have to do it. And people aren't always good about doing their maintenance, so it gets pushed off for many, many years until it's so bad that it has to be fixed. By then we break so much just to be able to get in and get the repair done. I have gone from needing to do simple brakes to having to rebuild the entire suspension on one side of the vehicle just because of rust. And it happens. You get in there, you start scratching at things, taking it apart, bolts start breaking, so you got to keep going down farther and farther until you can go to a spot that you can say, okay, everything's good at this point, let's start rebuilding everything back in. And that happens way more times than what it should. So let's go ahead and start the news portion here. I usually do this towards the tail end of the video. And the reason I do the news is some of them are kind of hot button topics. Well, so far we haven't had a lot of crazy stuff going on. There's been some new releases on some vehicles. There's been a few recalls that we've talked about in the past. Most of it is just kind of low key now until the end of the year. There isn't going to be anything super crazy that comes out unless there's a massive recall that hits the market. The Ford one was the biggest one when they told basically 775,000 vehicle owners to stop driving the Ford Rangers, Ford Explorers, and the Ford Mustangs all in the early 2000s. That recall is still having a splash in the industry and is actually having a massive impact on Ford's profitability right now. It is affecting their sales. Their sales numbers are down for this quarter. So them going now into the fourth quarter here, Their sales numbers are tapering off because of this massive recall. This was a huge mistake that they made. And rather than addressing it many years ago, they waited until it was a little too late. So on those guys, if you are looking at any used vehicles, try to lean away from those vehicles because there are going to be a bunch of issues. We got two here. Gail, I'm talking about the air. Are you talking about the airbag recall where they explode in hot climates when it popped out? Yes, actually, that's the recall I'm talking about. And what would happen is the airbags would basically go off by themselves. There was a piece in there that deteriorated over time. When the airbag goes off, though, it also sends metal shrapnel through the interior. That's why they're telling people not to drive those vehicles until the airbags get replaced. Was that the throttle issue? No, that was not. The throttle issue is something else. The recall on the Rangers, though, that was the Rangers, Explorers, and Mustangs. That was airbag related only. The throttle issues, I think, are on the newer models. So as you moved into it, I want to say it was like the 2017s through, it might have been 2015s even. It was in that upper range where they had throttle body issues, and it was the servo motors that were failing in those, causing the throttles to not work. GM had an issue too with throttles, and I think Toyota had the biggest scandal of all with the throttle issues. Toyotas, back in the day, their throttles would stick wide open while you were going down the road. And unless you were thinking ahead, you wouldn't remember to just turn off the key and let it coast to a stop. Most people just let the car take off on them, and it turned into a huge issue. There was a massive recall on that a few years ago where people would have to bring it back to the dealership. The dealership would then reprogram it so that when it did fail, it would go into limp mode rather than full throttle. And yeah, that was quite the issue. But yeah, that one was on Toyota. The GM one, they've had quite a bit of issues with their throttle bodies. Those stepper motors in the GM throttle bodies are trash. I've never cared for them. And there is no good product out there to get rid of the throttle lag. So like during the recall, the airbag, why do you think that would happen? Okay, so as far as an airbag, actually I got one. I'm gonna grab it. This is why I don't throw things, guys. Here you go. This is an airbag. This one is actually out of a GM, and it came out of a Silverado. The reason I replaced it is apparently somebody had ticked off their X and slashed their interior up. Somebody thought they would go slashing an airbag. Bad move. Really bad move. This airbag could have went off from them slashing at this airbag, but the whole interior was cut and slashed. It was down the body, everything. So I bought it used, went through, did some touch-ups on the paint, got it back ready to go, and yeah, I had to replace the airbag, so this is the airbag out of it. How these can go bad is you guys see these massive cylinders in here? This is what sets off the airbag. So this is a chemical powder in here that is designed that when the chemicals are mixed, it causes the airbag to pop out at very rapid speed, sometimes almost lightning speed. How this can happen is sometimes, like this one's got the bolt on this side, the canister's on this side. I would never take this bag apart, even though it's been around for several years in the state that it's in and that it's not connected. I would never mess with this airbag. And the only reason I got it around is it makes a good door stop because it's pretty heavy. And if it sets off against the door, I really don't care. It's just going to push the door open. Now, the only thing that I would watch out for is on an airbag like this, oftentimes some of these components can fail over time. And where the components fail is in those canisters. So if the canisters mix that powder for any reason, if it gets mixed, it will set the bag off regardless. It doesn't matter if you get in a collision or not. I've watched these airbags in a cut-off frame on a car. So in auto body class, they brought in a subsection of the car. You had the dash, they cut it at the windshield pillar, and they cut it across the floor. So you had the huge firewall with the airbags in it. This was a huge section. It was heavy. It was almost 1,000 pounds. When they set those airbags off, it spun that firewall and it slapped down on the ground when the airbags went off. There's that much force in those airbags to literally pick up 1,000 pounds and spin it like there's nothing there. So the airbags are crazy. And yeah, that's what's going on, is there's something inside that canister that's failing over time that's causing it to be such a massive issue. Thank you, SoCal, for that, by the way. We had a family die here because throttle on a rental car stuck wide open throttle and they blew through a T intersection. Yeah. If you know that car though, drop it in the chat. That way people know if they have one of those cars that they should watch out for that. Because yeah, those it happens. And this is why I was never a fan of electronic throttles. This is cable driven. This is electronic, meaning that it has the electronic throttle body. The reason that cable is better than the electronic is cable doesn't fail. And if it does, all that happens is you can't accelerate the vehicle. When the electronics were failing, they were failing at wide open throttles. Or the stepper motors get caught and it won't allow the vehicle to decelerate. I wanted to say, yep, the Camrys were the ones that had the issues with the throttle sticking. There was a case in a major city in the state that I live in where the throttle stuck wide open. The car plowed into the back of a semi-truck and killed everyone inside. And it was because they were not paying attention to what was going on and they didn't know to shut the car off. If they would have shut it off, it would have killed everything and the motor would have stopped going. But they didn't react quick enough. So yeah, where these airbags are failing are on the inside. It's the inside components that are failing on these airbags. And what will happen is the powder will mix and it will set the bag off. Last thing you ever want to do is start smacking at these with a hammer, cutting at them with a knife. You don't want to be playing around with these things. Even me holding it, I'm trying to keep it away from my face because if it would go off, I would rather have it go off and force itself to the ground than to hit me in the face. Now, this one, I should really decommission this one and get rid of it, not leaving it lay around here because it could hurt somebody if it went off. And more than likely in the next week or two, I probably will get rid of this one. Cable will break when the electronic will hold wide open. Yep, just what I said on that. Hypothetically, are semi-trucks the most dangerous vehicles in the world? I'll answer that in a little bit with a caveat. Actual electronic vehicle is more dangerous than a semi due to faulty battery and fire risk. Yes and no. The reason, and I am not a fan of EV, guys. You already know this. Not even close. Not a fan of EV. Don't want anything to do with EV. But when it comes to the EV, here's some of the issues that we have. EVs are not rated for our current road structures, meaning that they're heavier. Those extra added weight of the batteries, when they hit barricades, they blow through them instead of glancing off of them. And this is some of the safety concerns that have been raised in the last few years with EVs, is oftentimes when they hit a shoulder and they hit those road guards, the road guards spear through the EV. And our current structure, our power grids, everything are not designed for it. I've already spoken out against how I don't want the EVs because they're piggybacking off of a system that we use to power our homes. And we should never be using more than one source to power anything. So when we rely on only one source to power, it's easy for us to get attacked. It's easier for that one source to get shut down. Now, if you have gasoline vehicles, they can't stop the gasoline vehicles even if they cut the power grid. So again, you have fail safes. Let's say this happens in the winter, your electricity goes out in your house. You're obviously going to get the water out of all your pipes so nothing freezes, and then you need to figure out a way to get warm. Now, you could start a fire in your house, potentially burn down your house, or if your car was gasoline, you can go out in your car, start your car, and stay in your car until the power comes back on. Now, if it's all EV, power goes down. If your car doesn't have enough charge, you ain't going nowhere. And this is why I didn't want to see too many things attached to one network. Okay, to get back to Gail's comment, are semis the most dangerous vehicle on the road? Here's what I'm going to tell you. The answer is no, it's not. Semis are actually very strongly regulated. They have to go through a vehicle inspection every year. The only time you hear of people getting in accidents with semis is because either the driver of the semi isn't trained well enough to drive that truck, or he gets put in a bad situation with a car and doesn't have a choice. Most of the time, Class A drivers have to go through stringent regulations, and they have to get health certifications in order to even maintain their license. So you have a lot less risk in a big truck than you do in a small car. Where we're seeing a lot of people have issues is small cars run the risk of crashing into things and causing more problems. This is why some vehicles have horrible crash ratings. And sometimes it's not even because the car has a faulty issue. It's that there's so many of those cars out on the road, people are driving recklessly. Again, learning how to drive, taking your time, being patient behind the wheel is more important. The worst thing in the world is a cell phone. And coming from a person who used to use headsets and everything else while driving a semi, cell phones are the number one distraction and can get people hurt or killed. Again, stay off the phone. If you're behind the wheel of a vehicle, don't. It's not worth it. It only takes a second for you to change either your life or someone else's. Gail, wow, yep. Also, truck drivers have more driving experience than the vast majority of people. That is correct. Most of us have to drive through wicked storms, deal with conditions that most people are not comfortable with. Because of that, you gain skills. You learn how to do things differently. You learn how to pay attention. We're taught to look farther ahead. Just knowing the weight of our vehicle and how long it takes to slow down, we have to be more mindful. Some drivers are reckless behind the wheel. Semi drivers, I really hate to say this, semi driving was an old school. You learned from the old timers that knew how to do it. Because schools have kind of gotten involved and they don't teach the older ways, you get a lot of younger semi drivers that are not skilled to do this. They do not have the skills, and they're not being taught the proper skills to keep themselves out of danger. And that's where you're seeing the semi crashes. It isn't that semis are dangerous because we are so regulated, it can't be. You do get the few bad eggs that don't know how to back off when a car passes them. They get frustrated, they get mad. That's when you have those accidents. And honestly, those are the people that don't last in the industry. They wash out quick, or they get thrown in jail for the rest of their life. And there's a lot of them. Some people, you get in an accident in a semi and you were on a cell phone, you're going to jail. And if you took someone's life, you're going to be there a long time. There's a lot of videos out of people who've gone to jail for a very long time because they were driving a Class A vehicle on a cell phone. Gail, so what do you think about the new AI cars and how will they be driving? Do you think they will probably most likely crash into people and most likely not? Okay. Good thing you asked that here later in this video, especially since I know my algorithm and how much it doesn't like what I'm about to say. I'm going to go ahead and say it. AI cars are absolute trash. There's a reason why Tesla had to put out a recall to have all their EV or all their AI driving stuff shut off. The AI driving is not able to function properly. It requires satellite signal to stay uploaded to make sure it stays on course. Not only that, but the sensors needed around the vehicle to pay attention to other things isn't there. And when we remove the person from behind the wheel and it's just the car driving, there's a few issues. Number one, you have insurance and liability issues. Those insurance and liability issues raise the cost of insurance because somebody's going to be at fault regardless. And because of that, there's going to be a lot bigger problems about having AI drive. The AI driving program is not going to function the way it needs to because they're not going to be able to just switch everything over to AI. And because of that situation, I don't see AI taking over. The other thing is insurance companies live off of making money. If nothing ever crashed because it was all on a network, you wouldn't need insurance. Again, that being said, you also wouldn't have anyone to be liable for that accident. So because of the way that the whole system is set up, the way it's designed, there is going to be a huge push away from the AI driving just because of what we're seeing currently with the self-driving cars. They're not very accurate. They do crash. They can't anticipate what vehicles are doing around them. Now, if the person isn't paying attention behind the wheel because they're on their phone or they're not paying attention to their surroundings, they're also going to still get in that same accident. But AI cannot read or comprehend those things where a human driving will be able to. They will see that. If they're paying attention, they'll catch it out of the corner of their eye. There would have to be so many sensors on that car and overcomplicate the system to where even if one sensor failed, it would have to shut the car down. Again, that's going to raise cost, and nobody's going to want to pay that additional cost for that kind of technology, and then to have it sit in the shop all the time for sensor failures. So hopefully that answered your question. Next time Tesla get in a crash with another car, I bet the other car should sue Elon. Yeah, and that's some of the reason why they're turning off the AI, why they're turning off the self-driving features. It's becoming way too much of a liability, and it's falling on the manufacturers and the people running the GPS systems. And they don't want to be sued, so they're just going to shut them off. Not to mention a one fuse or sensor failure that could cause a runaway vehicle situation. Yep, that's the other thing is an AI. All it's going to take is one failure, and they're going to have to put in a redundant system to completely shut down the self-driving feature. But if it happens while the vehicle's driving, they're going to have to put it into a limp mode where it just slows itself down. Well, if it's on an interstate and it slows itself down, now you've created a traffic jam. So that's some of the other reason for them shutting off this self-driving feature. Honestly, I don't know if we're ever going to see a true self-driving that takes the driver out of that position permanently. Yeah, it is the height of laziness that has created this basic way of life, and I don't care for it at all. And anyone who builds cars, anyone who's worked on cars, anyone who has a love for this agrees with me totally. The self-driving feature is nothing but a hazard. And it's going to be, because you can't switch the entire system over to self-driving AI. You can't. Most people are not going to be able to afford those kind of systems, because in order to do it and to be able to do it properly, I mean, take a look at a Tesla. If you wanted to buy a Tesla, you're spending way more than you are on anything else. Yeah, you can get cheap model EVs, but it's going to take some really high knowledge and experience to be able to engineer that and make it work properly. Again, that's money, dollar signs. Everything gets spun up the same. You know, the more technology we want, the more it's going to cost. Gail, should I jump out of my sunroof in the car? I would not advise that. I mean, that's about as bad as driving an EV. So I'll give you guys a little bit more time to chat in before we wrap this up. This has been a really good podcast on a highway. Yeah, just sail that thing and let her fly. No, don't do that. That's crazy. Gail, you've been pretty entertaining. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and wrench you up today. There you go. You've been wrenched up. SoCal is one of my mods here. He does a really, really good job. I like having him in here. When he's in here, it really does kind of help keep the chat under control. So I really do like that. Again, guys, we always go live every Sunday at 1 p.m. I usually go for about an hour, hour and a half, somewhere in there. We do get into news, we do a project, and then we kind of transition into helping you guys answer your questions. Yep, there you go. You got your wrench. So, cool. But yeah, as always, guys, we try to do this. We try to give you guys knowledge to work on your own cars. Everything from doing simple basic stuff, such as installing a mini spoiler, to installing new shocks in your trunk and in your hood. We try to keep this pretty basic and try to give you guys the knowledge. We got one from Lewis Brown. Hi from Maine. Keep it up. All gas, I say. Yep. I'm the same way. I will not. You guys will not see an EV on this channel. I will not do an EV. I've got nothing good to say about them, and I'm not gonna go against that. Anyone who likes them, that's cool. They can like them all they want, but not my thing. I literally just turned into a moderator for your channel. Yes, you did. You've been pretty good today. You've helped keep things entertaining. So keep that up and make sure you come in every Sunday. Hopefully next Sunday I will have the Falcon 100% complete and have some dyno results. That would be awesome. I would love to have you drop some of those dyno results in the chat. That would be really cool. So yeah, every Sunday, 1 p.m., guys, we go live. We do this. We get through all of our projects. What do we got coming up for the next couple of weeks? Well, next week, I can tell you I'll be doing a video on tools that you're going to want to have if you're going to road trip. This is going to be an important video for anyone who wants to go any long distances. It's important to be able to have the tools you need when you're on the side of the road. These tools will help get you out of a sticky situation, anything from a blown tire to maybe something a little bit more serious, or even a little minor stuff like changing a light bulb. Nothing's worse than being in an out-of-state situation when you have a light bulb out, because you will get pulled over for it, even if you're not speeding. It is a quick, easy, let's pull them over and see if we can write a ticket. and they do look for out-of-state plates anytime you go out of your own state. So making sure you can fix those when you get to wherever you gotta go is pretty crucial. I'm going to be covering all of that in that next week's video. What do we got coming up? Well, we do have a few more projects coming up for Malibu Steel. We don't have a ton going on until we shut this vehicle down. We will probably do a buffing video on this because this paint is horrendous enough for me to go ahead and do one. I'll probably break it down pretty basic. You guys didn't get a chance to see the buffing this time because I wanted to get the spoiler on. It was pretty important for me to get that done, and I needed to get the shocks put in the trunk. And I will probably do the hood ones when we get around to doing hood stuff underneath the hood. We've got some projects coming up on Silver Swine. We've got some dash things going on. We need to go through all of our dash components. The reason I'm going to be talking about the dash stuff is I did an LED upgrade. So I want to show you guys where the fixtures are, how to get everything apart, how to do it. Now, mine has already been put back together, but I will show you guys in the dash where things are located and what tools you'll need to do that project. I did mostly LED everywhere I possibly could. There were a few places I could not do LEDs, so I will let you know where I couldn't do LEDs. Let's go with Champagne Bubbles next. Champagne Bubbles has been having issues with oil consumption. We've got a video coming up on that. I also got a video coming for that if you live in California, you will not be able to do the trick I'm going to show you. That trick will help you to eliminate getting engine oil sucked into your intake. This is very crucial for anyone trying to work on cars that is sick of having oil consumption issues, but it's not physically burning it. Again, the Kia Souls have had a bad issue with this. They have bad piston rings. They do get oil buildup inside of the intakes, which require an expensive cleaning process. We may have to go through that expensive cleaning process. We are consuming about a half a quart every week. So the oil consumption is getting really bad to the point that something's got to be done. And when I go to do the bypass, it'll be important to know how to do this and what you need to disconnect and plug off in order to make sure you're not having vacuum leaks. Lastly, on Crimson Vortec, we do have some upper control arm issues that I will have to fix before winter hits. So in the near future here, the Silver Swine will be sliding out and Crimson Vortec will be sliding in here to do upper control arms. Once we do the upper control arms, we'll need to get an alignment done. I got fairly new tires on it, so I don't want to be chopping up my brand new tires. And getting this fixed is going to be really, really, really important. Got a couple of chats here that I read before we're going to head out. I'm a good boy now. Oil leak, or it is burning oil. Wow, that is a lot. Yeah. Here's the thing. I'll go ahead and break this down a little bit here for you guys. You guys are pretty much my loyal fans that have stuck around now towards the tail end of this video. The oil consumption on the 2020, what's happening is they're saying that it isn't piston ring because there is no blue smoke. When you start the car, there's no blue smoke, but there is a hesitation in the engine. What it's doing is there's two lines. One line is breather headed out, one is headed back around towards the intake. Those two lines are sucking oil out of the top of the valve cover because of all the vacuum. That amount of vacuum is creating oil consumption because it's sticking it right back into the intake and it's mixing enough with the air that you don't see blue smoke. But yes, consuming a half a quart of oil a week is getting excessive. Now, Kia won't do anything until it reaches a full quart in 1,000 miles. We are this close to it consuming that much in 1,000 miles. Honestly, I think in the next probably month or two, probably before spring, that's going to have to get done. And they're going to shut the vehicle down, tear the whole upper intake apart, clean everything out. When they clean everything out, I don't want this to happen again because it won't be covered under warranty next time. then we're going to want our bypasses in there. We're going to want to bypass it. When we do have to take it in for a service, I'll flip everything back. I'll show you guys how I do it to where it's easy to reverse and you can go back into the vehicle. The worst thing you want to do is do a mod that you can't quickly reverse. So making this a complicated thing is not going to be good. I'm going to try to save all factory hoses so that when it's time for us to take it back in, I can unplug everything really fast, put it all back to stock, and then it can go in. And this won't mess with any sensors because there's no sensors in those lines. So we can bypass them. I drink oil. Is that okay? Yeah, that's crazy how much oil it's going through. It shouldn't be doing that, especially on a 2020. But again, Kias have issues with piston rings. So we weren't sure if it was piston rings or it was just oil consumption because it was getting sucked through a vacuum line. It's getting sucked through the vacuum line. And when I take the intake apart and look at everything, I'm going to be able to prove that that's what's going on. And when it is, it's not going to stay that way. I will be bypassing it. 1999 gallons of oil every day. Yeah. I've got quite the stockpile of oil because I do oil changes for vehicles, but getting sick of chewing into my own stock to fill my own vehicles. So it's better for me not to burn it. We do have a slight oil consumption on this car, and I'm not going to fix it. It's not smoking blue or anything like that, but I will go through about a quart every oil change. So I will burn up that much. That is considered normal by any stretch of the imagination. So if you're burning a quart of oil through an oil change, that's normal consumption. That's not extreme by any means. But if you're burning a quart every 1,000 miles when you're supposed to go about 4,000 miles for an oil change, yeah, you're burning an extra 4 quarts. So that was, when they told me that, I'm like, you guys are insane. I'm like, that's not normal and it's not right. Yeah, oil. Lots and lots of oil. That's some of the issues that we run into when we work on cars, is keeping everything under control and making sure that things aren't burning oil like they shouldn't be. And oftentimes oil leaks are a good indication that you have problems. Last week, you guys might have seen, and if you guys didn't, go back and check last week's video. There was a truck sitting in here. It was behind me on this side. And it was a black Silverado that had a power steering gearbox failure. And when I mean this thing was spitting oil, I wasn't joking. It made a mess out of my garage. And I did the job because it was going to be one of those things where I did it and it benefited not only me, but it benefited the person that was working on it. He does garage door repairs and should be here, sometime soon to do some of my garage door repairs. But yeah, that was a messy job. And he kept dumping oil in it just to not burn up the pump, and we went through a lot of oil. Lewis, I have an 07 Silverado that has 114,000 miles, never consumes any oil, the oil change every 3,000 miles. Yep, some of your newer engines, especially the V8 engines. So since you're talking about a engine that is pretty well built, I mean, for the most part, the Silverado engines are no joke. They're built pretty strong. They got good stuff in them. The one thing that they messed up on was the active fuel management. That destroys lifters. So again, in that 07, if you got an early 07, meaning that it was the older body style, you'll be all right. If you got the newer body style that has the active fuel management in it, meaning that it will potentially have lifter failure issues. Those are one of the major Achilles heels for those engines. SoCal, I have replaced the power steering pump on my F-150. Not going to be fun. No, it wasn't fun changing the gearbox, but I've done many of them. The only thing I told the customer was plain and simple, get me a new pitman arm. I'm not going to put your old pitman arm on. And it was a good thing we did because there's two different pitman arms for that truck. And his, I want to say, was in that 2005, 2006 range. It was the older style grill. It might have even been like an no, it wasn't a cat eye. I bet you it was an 02. I bet you it was an 02. Had the older style grill in it, and there was two different pitman arms for that gearbox. And yeah, good thing we went and got the new one, because the old one, when I pulled it out, I could take the little nub that sticks through on the steering shaft. You could take the nub and just wobble it back and forth by your bare hand. It was crazy loose, and it was really dangerous, like crazy dangerous. My dad has a '09 Pontiac G6. Its body is falling apart. Yep, a lot of the newer cars have rust issues, major rust issues. Lewis, the 4L60E transmission is weak. I don't have active fuel management. I have return line to the pump. It's a cat eye body. Yep. So you've got the older one. Yep. So that, yeah, the older transmission, those 4L60Es kind of were always a weak transmission. They were not very strong. And the 700R4s were kind of worse until you actually rebuilt them. But it took them many years to put out a decent rebuild kit on the 700R4s. I heard people beefing up the 4L60s. I've heard of people doing a 4L80 swap. Sometimes that 4L80 swap actually helps you a lot better because you're able to put a stronger transmission in that'll work. Again, that requires a different computer, different harnesses. It gets into, it's pretty labor intensive. But yeah, on that, again, there you go. I mean, it's an older vehicle, a lot more maintenance, a lot more repairs. Gail, rusting. Yep. Rust is a great equalizer. It doesn't care what vehicle you got. It will destroy and just make it bad. And yeah, as far as hating rusty cars, it happens when you live in the Rust Belt. There's nothing we can do to avoid it. A lot of people buy out-of-state cars from down south because they don't have the rusting frame issues. This truck came from Arizona. There is zero rust on that truck, and this truck never sees a winter where I'm from. This truck goes into storage, and it's only got 40,000 miles on it. It's my good truck, and at some point I would like to move away from snow and cold and never deal with it again. When I do, this truck is going with me. This car will probably be long dead by then, but yeah. Lewis, I was going to say 4L60 swap would best me. Yeah, well, like I said, that 4L80 swap, you're going to have harnesses, you're going to have computers. It might even take some programming if it's tied into the body control module, because some of the computers on those transmissions are tied into the body control module, not a separate computer for the transmission. So that requires some programming if you're going to do that swap. Oftentimes, depending on what you're doing with the truck, if you're doing a lot of pulling and towing, you might have no choice but to do the swap. If you're not doing a lot of towing, then you could probably just do a rebuild on the transmission and it'll be really good for a long time. But make sure you find a good rebuilder. My old little mini bike is rusting so bad. Yeah, Gail, that happens. Oftentimes when they're left out in the snow and the cold, that does still continue to cause them to rust. That's why I tell anyone who lives in the Rust Belt, if you have a garage and it's heated, get it in the garage and let that stuff melt off. The longer that snow and ice and all that water sits on those bare metal parts, that will enhance the rusting feature. It'll rust a lot faster that way. Lewis, calcium on our roads in the winter is why I oil my frame with used motor oil. Yeah, that does make a difference. When you have rusty frames like that, oftentimes having an oil leak is more beneficial because it coats the underside of the frame to where you don't have those rusting issues. I've seen old trucks that have gone through many winters and never seen a garage to where it melts off the stuff, and they're not rusty because they leak so much oil that it's kept everything in halfway decent shape. There are some spots where the oil doesn't get to and it'll still rust in those spots, but yes, the new calcium that they're putting on roads is just, it's horrendous. That liquid that they're spraying on roads to keep the rust off and or keep the ice and snow and salt, that stuff is nasty. I've seen that chemical sprayed, and the state that I live in, I've seen a lot of bad brake lines and gas lines because that liquid is actually eating the metal and it's just tearing it up. It's pretty nasty stuff. I put it in the garage every year, but it still rusts. Don't know why. What you can do is kind of strip everything down, clean it up really well, try to get some paint on bare metal spots. When you put everything back together, make sure you spray everything down, put in some lubricant. Again, like we were saying with the oil, a good thing is like chains. Oftentimes chains will get rusty if you don't keep them lubricated, because most chains are bare metal and you're not supposed to paint chains because they need to be able to pivot. The minute you throw spray paint in there, they won't pivot very well and they could pop off, which could shred the gears or do other weird things that are not good. So again, make sure you spray down components that have a ton of bare metal. Make sure you either get paint on them or get lubricant on them so that they won't rust as easy. Penetrating spray works really good on chains. Use copper or nickel lines. Yeah, well, some of that comes down to cost. You know, the crazy cost of copper nowadays. Nickel isn't exactly any cheaper either. I mean, I've heard of people getting stainless steel lines. Stainless steel is a little bit better, but you've got to go through and swap everything out to a stainless steel line, and that's a crazy amount of work. It's pretty insane how much work you have to do to swap everything over to stainless. I will try to do that after I get off the chat. Usually I don't do a whole lot of sub backs, so just so you know, I try to keep all that stuff. It has to do with the algorithm, which is why I don't do a lot of sub stuff. But yes, I will check out yours. But you guys, I want to say thank you. This has been a good one. I'm glad we had some good stuff come in here towards the tail end. We were able to help some people out, talk about some interesting topics that we do try to talk about every week. I'll get into the news like always. But as always, guys, thank you for all the support. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. Ring the notification bell so you guys get notified when I go live. I will see you next Sunday at 1 p.m. Central Time. See ya on the next one.